Hello and welcome to a paint with me video. This is my first one, so please bear with me. In this one I'm going to be showing you how I use watercolor pencils. The ones that I use are by Derwent. They're the Inktense pencils. I've been using these for 10 years now, so I'm just going to be showing you some basics on how I use them. I wasn't that happy with the result of the painting that I actually do in this video, but that's not the point. I think it shows like the basics of how to use these pencils, what techniques I use. I'm more comfortable when it comes to doing fur, like animals and that kind of stuff, but I decided that to start with I'll just do something simple. I end up going with a skull that I then surround by some flowers. So I hope this video helps and that you enjoy it, and let's get straight into it. So first of all, I'm just gonna start off by outlining the skull and then add some shadows with a black pencil. Now, a little bit of colour can go a long way with these, so it's best to maybe start with a lighter layer and then go in with some shadows afterwards. So I'm just adding in some shading around the nose area and around like where there would be shadows on a skull. And something that I found with these pencils is that you have to sharpen them very often. They do go blunt quite quickly because they are very soft. The ink in them is very soft, so if you want to do small details you do have to sharpen them quite often. As soon as they start to go blunt, they are good for doing like big areas, big patches, but small details you do have to sharpen the pencil quite often. So now I'm using this antique white colour. I'm going to sharpen it first, and then I kind of just go over the entire skull with this white pencil. I find that when you add the white, you don't really see it, but you can blend the colours really well with it. So if you wanted to draw something white, this pencil's no good. I find it's better for like blending different colours together. You'll also see when I start to add the water that the paint or the ink goes kind of creamy, gives a really nice texture. So I'm just kind of smudging everything together with this pencil. You can use it for different colours, like if you have a blue and pink and you want to blend them together, you could just add it, or if you wanted to lighten the colour slightly, you could add this white pencil. But I find that it's, like I said, really good for blending and mixing the colours together on the page, but you couldn't actually draw something white with this pencil over the top of anything else. So these are the water brushes that I have. They're also by Derwent. They have them in 3 different sizes. I also have some other water brushes by a different brand that also come in 3 different sizes. And if you don't know what they are, you just fill this tank up with water you screw it on, and then when you press it, water actually comes out of the tip. So you have water that comes out of the brushes when you squeeze it. As you can see here on my finger, quite a bit of water comes out when you press it. So if you don't want a load of water to come out onto the paper, I normally use like a paper towel or something. If you don't have a brush like that, you can just use a normal paintbrush, make it a bit wet, and then go over it. So I'm taking I think this is a middle-sized brush. Yeah, that's the middle-sized brush. You can see it's kind of thicker at the ends. So I'm just gonna start off by wetting the brush. And then I go over the shadows first, just to like darken that and blend that in. And then I add water to the white area, and you can see here that it's kind of blending together nicely. Here it starts to go a bit more creamy and thick when I add a bit more water, like you can see there. So it's like pushing white water around the page, which is what I like about these pencils. You can push the ink around, so you can kind of control the ink in the water as you're brushing over it. I'm going to do the same at the top here, but I'm actually adding the water to the white area first, and then I'm going to push that out to the edges so that I don't smudge a load of black into that white area. So if I started on the outside, I would end up like smudging some of the black into the painting. I'm just adding some more black to the eyes and the nose, and then I'm going to go over that again with the water. Right, so now I'm going to start with the flowers. Just going to make sure all these pencils are nice and sharp. Like I said earlier, if you want to do small details, you do need to sharpen them. So again, I'm starting by outlining this petal with the darker shade of purple that I chose. So I'm just going to outline it, and then I'm going to start colouring in the petal, but on the outside. So I'm just going to colour that in. I'm going to put a reasonable amount of colour on to the paper around the edges. Now I'm going in with a lighter shade of pink. I'm just going to go around the edges as well. And then I'm going to add a very light layer, like in the middle of the petal. And now I'm about to go in with the smaller water brush. That's the smallest one. And then what I essentially do with all things that I paint with these pencils, I start on the lighter areas and then brush outwards to the darker areas. So I kind of move the ink around the paper. So here you can see where there's more ink, it's starting to get darker, and you can kind of push that out. And by pushing the ink out, you're also given the outline. So you don't have to outline it again when you finish doing it. You kind of can create the outline by pushing the ink around and by working from the middle outwards. That gives a nice effect. I'm missing some ink on a certain part, I like to, like I'm doing here, put some ink directly from the pencil onto the brush and then fill in those gaps where I feel like I need a bit more colour, because it's quite difficult to use the pencil on wet paper, and if you wait till it dries you can't mix the colours as well on the paper. So I find that this is the easiest way to do it. You just add the ink straight onto the paintbrush. So I'm going to do this for all petals. I start on the outside with a dark colour, on the inside with a light colour, and then I go in with the brush and work my way outwards. I'm going to do the same for the little poppy flower thing there. I'm going to sharpen these red pencils first. I've got a lighter shade, a medium shade and a darker shade, and I'm just going to add the lighter shade in the middle, and then I'm going to take a slightly darker shade and put some definition in there, like define the petals, and add some shading. And then I'm gonna kind of outline the whole thing with a darker shade of red. Technique here, I'm gonna start in the middle and work my way outwards with the little water brush. The only thing is, like you can see here on the left, I've left it a bit long before blending into the left part of the flower. So you can see now I'm struggling to get rid of that line. So you do have to work reasonably quickly with these pencils, because if you're trying to do a bigger area like I was there, then you are left with a line where you finished painting, and it's quite difficult to get rid of that. So I'm using the same technique here as well, and then I do later on for the leaves. I just kind of add a light shade in the middle, then I go in with a medium shade, and at the tips I'm just adding in a darker shade of blue, and then I work my way outwards with the brush again. I feel like that's a really neat way of blending things and making things look a bit more interesting. Here I'm watching Apple Cheeks vlog. I actually really often watch other artists' vlogs while I'm painting or drawing. It kind of makes you feel like you're not on your own making art, like you're with a friend. Here I'm watching Studio Maggie. And like I said before, I'm doing the same thing with these leaves. Adding a lighter shade and then darker shade. Adding some details in between the petals here. The dark shade of blue. And then for the background I decided to go for like a gold paint. So I'm just using this matte acrylic gold paint. It's quite thick and creamy. I wish it had actually been that quick to add the paint. It took me forever to get the paint in between the little petals and the leaves. adding very tiny details, but with gouache. I find that I can't add really small details with the pencils because everything gets a bit messy, like it blends into each other. So for the final small details, like the middle, like the center of the flower, I'm just going in with some gouache. It just ends up looking neater because the Inktense do smudge. Since they're quite a soft pencil, you can't do small tiny details with them very well. Even if you sharpen them, I find that they would break when I sharpen them too much. So now I'm going to add some pressed flowers. I pressed these one in the summer. You just lay them between 2 pages of a book and leave them for a couple weeks. And I'm just going to add some glue to the back of them. And the easiest way to spread glue around is with a paintbrush. So you can take the brush part of the paintbrush and brush it around the actual flower and along the stem that I'm holding. Here I'm using the brush, but if it's like a really long stem, sometimes it's easier to use it with the other tip of the paintbrush. So if you've done the paintbrush round and use the tip of it, I actually have one that's covered in glue because I always used to use the same paintbrush. Unfortunately, I'm not using my tweezers. I'm a little bit clumsy when it comes to using my hands to put the flowers down, but I've got my tweezers. So I'm just using my fingers to press that down. So yeah, now you can enjoy a very satisfying tape peel. And thank you for watching. Next time, hopefully I'll do some kind of animal so I can show you how to do fur, but I think this was good just to get started on how to use Inktense if you've never used them before. Like I said, they're reasonably easy to use, you just have to get used to how different they work. But thank you for watching, and yeah, enjoy a close-up, and I'll see you next time. Bye!